you all feel tonight?
Stop. I can't take it anymore.
Oh, I do the live ones too. Yes, I know. I saw your act in the theater. You're really quite good. Quite a certain harmful habit.
Stop it now, I need it.
Hello and welcome back. We are breaking up with RBS. This is episode number 70. And I am Tawny Santabria.
And I am JDK Winnikin.
70 sounds so old.
It does. But it's not.
But it's not. But it sounds it.
It sounds it. But
Yeah.
it just means we've been doing this for a while. But hey, it won't sound like that much when we're at 270.
That's true. That's going to be really old.
Yeah, because we'll still have BS to break up with even at 270. Anyway, hi, Tawny. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Nice to have all of you joining us as well. Thank you so much for doing so. If you're joining us live, good morning. If you're joining us on a podcast, thank you for subscribing, for leaving a review, all that. You can also check out our YouTube channel of the same name, Breaking Up with RBS. We also have a Facebook page that you can join for that. And Tawny's got a 6-week self-mastery course where you can take all these things that we talk about, apply them in your own context, and see how it can positively affect your life. And that's at unperfectyourself.com. You've gotten a good response over there, haven't you?
Yes. Learn lots of like content learning type stuff,
Yep.
practices, just getting information around the body and being able to thrive in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff we talk on here, we talk so conceptually. There's practice in that, right? That you can do. So that part's fun. So anyway, what's new?
What is new? Well,
You hate when I ask that.
yes, because I don't ever have an answer because I struggle with finding something new, I guess.
You like your
guess.
routines, I guess, but that doesn't mean your life is routine. Your life's pretty vibrant.
Yeah, I got a lot going on, got lots of things happening.
Yeah.
My son is going to get married in October.
Wow.
So, we're
Congratulations.
in the same year now. And so
Okay.
lots of things will start to be happening. It's going to go like that.
Yeah, no kidding.
And, I got to get, a nice dress as mother of the groom here.
That's
so
right.
pretty excited about that.
Oh, yeah. All those types of things.
Yes.
So
all the
good
funs.
family stuff. And your
Yeah.
grandbabies are good?
Yep. Grandbabies are good. They're just growing like weeds, of course.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah. Well,
Yes.
that's good. It's same for me. Somebody asked me the other day, like we were talking a little bit, all the things I'm working on and doing. And they said, wow, like you're doing a lot of things, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
But I had this great moment where I said to him, I was like, there's not a thing that I'm doing in my life that I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
And
You like doing the dishes, really?
I will do the dishes because,
Well, they got to be
clean
done.
something, they got to
yeah.
be done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I meant sort of my projects and creative things.
Well, of course.
There's lots of those things I don't like to do. Anyway, but it was kind of a fun realization to come to. It's like, oh wow, that's great. And it doesn't mean there aren't difficulties. I still have BS stories that come up around various things, and it's still easy for me to take a look sometimes at the things I don't have, quote unquote.
Sure.
And the shoulds come in, right? Well, you should have had this, or you should have made different choices. Those still pop up from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
But what's been interesting lately, and I wanted to ask you about this, I'm just as part of not just the certification coaching that I've been doing, but just out of my own interest, been doing a lot of mindfulness, work in mindfulness lately. And it seems to be, it's kind of everywhere. You know how like you don't know about something and then, you hear about it for the first time and then all of a sudden you see it everywhere, like a TV show that you've never heard of, and then you hear about it and then suddenly you see it on the magazine covers at the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of what mindfulness was for me
For you.
until recently. And a lot of stuff around that. And of course, there's lots of books on it. I know it was a craze for a while, then there was a backlash against it and all this kind of thing. But mindfulness,
Yeah.
what comes up for you when I mention that?
Well, I wish that the term was heartfulness.
Ooh.
Because I think that is actually what we're talking about.
And just like that, Tawny blows me out of the water. How many minutes in? Not even 5 minutes in, according to the ticker. Heartfulness.
I feel like that would be a more of an accurate
Yes.
description of when you hear mindfulness, what that really means.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm stupefied. So you're going to have to go into, I thought I was going to do this, but you're going to have to go into explaining what I mean by mindfulness, because I got to chew on that for a little bit and sip my coffee. What do you?
Well, right. Like, okay. So when we use the word mind, we are often thinking about head stuff.
Yeah.
Right. We're thinking and sort of like this idea of like controlling our thoughts and, things like this. And so it's like, it can feel sort of, we can interpret it as being like a heady thing, like controlling things, right? But when we think about or talk about the mind body, right, then we're talking about sort of like the body, including the heart and the whole, whole, right? So even when I say heartfulness, we maybe could even be mind bodyfulness, but then that's a really long word.
That's a long word, mind bodyfulness.
So, yes, exactly. But
heartfulness is good.
But that being able to be in the body with discomfort, with unpleasantness, being able to attune to what's going on in the centers of our body.
That
right?
awareness.
Yeah. And being able to work with our body in a way that opens us up, creates space, expands.
Yeah. Allows things for it to be as they are in that moment.
And with complete acceptance and acknowledgement, right? Which is from a heart place as opposed to a head space.
Yeah, like that welcoming we talked about a handful of weeks back. You welcome it like it knocks at the door, the emotion or the reality or the emotion that's uncomfortable, and you let it in. And you let it sit, and it'll leave. Yeah. I like that so much, because a lot of the mindfulness stuff that I've been learning about is about being aware. Right? It's kind of a shorthand, like a more technical term maybe than for being aware and how to get there. And there's a lot, it's breathing, it's meditation, but it's interesting to me in that sense. But heartfulness sounds so much better, because that integrates everything else.
Yeah. Well, it even heartfulness has us, when we hear it, it puts us into our body right away.
That's my response, yeah.
Right? Mindfulness doesn't necessarily do that, because we see mind as being up here.
Yeah.
Right? Now, certainly, what all, again, it's just, we're just talking about terms here for a second, but the practice of being in the body and being aware from an embodied place is what mindfulness is.
Yeah.
Right? And so very, very, very super helpful. Right? And though that's why language is so important.
It really is. It's just another reminder.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I always laugh about. And I tell everybody when people ask me about this show, and they say, what is it that always catches you by surprise? And I said, it's when Tawny takes some word that has been used somehow and we take it apart and I go, oh yeah, that doesn't really work. That's not all that helpful. You're right about that body experience. My reaction to heartfulness is from that space. Because that's the truth of it. Really, and one of the things I love about it, it does bring everything to the present, right? That's the idea of being aware without judgment of what's going on inside of you and the responses that you might be having, and not judging if you drift away. I mean, everybody thinks sometimes in meditation, the idea is to like empty your mind and empty this trance-like state. And there is transcendental meditation, that has its value. But mindfulness is really about letting those things in that we talk about a lot. Right, letting the reality of things be there, recognize it doesn't have to be a threat, doesn't have to be a problem, and that's it. But for me, that I think that the mindful part is, and some of the stuff that people that are working on it with me keep bringing up is all from a headspace. I'm thinking too much about my breathing. Okay,
right,
all that type of stuff. But from a heartful space, sounds and feels different. It's more integrated by its very nature. And it's like when we talked a number of episodes ago about the power of the word soften. And for those of you who are new, we talked about how in a stressed state, sometimes if you just say to yourself, soften, and then just try and soften your eyes, your jaw, your tongue, put your tongue behind your teeth, you can actually feel the difference. It's that connecting into the ventral vagal system, in the central nervous system. I love that because it always does work. Even if it's just a little bit at first,
Mm-hmm.
helps. But that's the exact kind of feeling I had when you mentioned heartfulness
Yeah.
instead, but it was a lot more profound than that.
Yeah. And the heart doesn't travel in time, right? Like our thoughts, we go back in the past with our thinking, and we go forward into the future
I'm writing that down.
with our thinking, right? So we can be anywhere with our thinking other than here. The heart is here.
The heart doesn't travel in time, doesn't travel back in time. Okay.
It's right here. The heart is right here.
Okay.
We can feel it beating.
I'm gobsmacked by that.
Yeah.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
It is right here.
Mm-hmm.
The stories about things in the past, heartbreak, is all from a mind space in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So the best kind of mindfulness, or really what that is engaging in that now. If it doesn't travel back, it's about now.
Now.
It's not about what happened in the past or what might happen in the future.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. If it doesn't travel back in time, it doesn't go forward in time either.
It doesn't travel in time.
It is not Marty McFly
It is not.
and Doc Brown.
No, our thinking spaces.
Marty. Sorry.
Yeah, that's Marty. Marty.
Thinking spaces, Marty. Have you ever noticed that they're always yelling at each other in those movies? I'm telling you all out there, if you watch those movies again, they're almost always yelling at each other. Their dialogue is a very high volume.
Oh.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Huh.
I keep thinking why.
Getting ourselves
and the
all
thing
worked
is, you
up.
can't unsee it once you see it.
Yeah.
Sorry if I ruined that for everybody. But nevertheless, that is, wow. So in that sense, the heart is much more of the fulcrum in our body for the now than the brain is.
The thinking space.
The
yeah.
thinking space, right, of the brain.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we don't want to put down the thinking space of the brain because we do need it.
We do need it, right.
We do need
right.
it. But we need it in combo, right? With both with the body.
It needs to be in sync with that space for us to really then understand, or I don't even know if it's so much to know what to do with that, but just to have whatever thoughts we're really going to pay attention to come from that space, because then we know they aren't BS stories.
Yes. And last week we were talking about the childhood coping mechanisms, right? If again, we need the thinking space, but we don't need the thinking space run by the childhood coping mechanisms. We want the thinking space run by, if you will, or partnered with heart space,
Heartfulness.
and gut space.
Yeah.
Right?
That.
We want to be centered. We want to be an adult, right? Centered and grounded, fully here in heart space, and then thinking from there. That would be obviously more ideal. We're fully integrated, and that doesn't happen overnight, but we're not then open to or vulnerable to the childlike coping mechanisms that kept us protected and limited as adults, right? We're not vulnerable to those because we're here right now. We can see clearly, like, this experience just happened. And instead of the body like going into protection mode because of what happened when we were 8, right? And bringing it to the present right now.
Yeah.
That's all thinking just because our body's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Right.
Right. We're not here right now.
And the idea is to somehow get away from that discomfort.
Yes.
Right.
So then we react from that childlike coping mechanism, right? But here as an adult, if we are in heartfulness, right? If we are grounded and something happens right now, we are not acting out as an 8-year-old.
Yeah. I'm smiling big and appreciating this feeling in my body. Everything's shifted since you said that word. But I'm thinking back to when we first started working and you introduced.
That's a great word.
Paschetti, yes.
Yes.
When you introduced me to this and you started me out in breathing exercises and breathing into the belly and being aware of what was there and naming the emotions that I was feeling and kind of breathing them there and then moving up to the heart space with that. And then what does the head say from that? And I nicknamed that going up the ladder. And if you were to walk around in my house, you would see in my room, in my bathroom, on my refrigerator, And actually out in one of the common areas and in my car, a Post-it note that says, go up the ladder. And to the best of my ability, I try not to make, when there's emotions that have been run up or there's a story, I try not to make any decisions on anything until I've gone up the ladder. And that's starting in the belly, doing the breathing, because that helps me out. It also gives me a chance to pause before letting any of my childhood mechanisms run amok. And it's been helpful to do that because it's a reminder. And so if I do that, and the amazing thing about that is from that space, when I do that, an answer will be evident, or a recognition that I don't need to have an answer, or there isn't one and there doesn't have to be one. And I don't have to be wrapped around the axle no matter what, whether I have a certainty around it or clarity or not. And what is amazing to me is the open-endedness of that is actually, in a lot of ways, its own solution, because there's an okayness to that. Right? And I don't do destructive things, trying to control, like we talked about last week, trying to manipulate something or control an outcome or people please or get into perfectionism. So
yeah, well, most often there isn't something that immediately has to be done.
Right.
There's very few situations
right.
where there's an immediate action required.
Yeah.
And so then if we're able to work with our breath and soften our body, just like you said earlier, we're starting to turn on the ventral vagal system, which is the relaxation response in the body, which is and allows us to calm down a little bit, right? To create some safety in our body. When we have more safety in our body, of course, we don't have to respond in the childlike coping mechanism. Because remember, that was all about protection.
Yeah.
That was all about, I'm just trying to survive this thing here.
Yeah.
Right? As an adult, we can create our own safety in our body.
That's right.
And then we can respond to life from there.
Yeah, from a connection space as opposed to a protection space. And that's one of the fundamental building blocks of what we talk about is, are you in protection mode in a given moment or connected mode? It's a nice barometer for me when I ask myself that question. Oh, okay, that's protected. What's that about?
Yeah.
You know?
And certainly there are certain circumstances where we are going to lean towards protection.
Absolutely.
Right. When there is an actual real-time issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But we don't want that real-time thing to be manipulated into where we're believing something from the past is actually creating a problem right now. We want to be able to see more clearly than that.
Yeah, because the problem from the past that we're thinking about that's churning up emotions is not what's happening right now.
Most of the time,
Most
yes.
of the time, it's not. No. And I can't spend too much time looking back on how, wondering how many hours of my life got burned up emotionally by me pulling stuff from the past or worries about the future, essentially being Marty McFly with my brain, rather than being right where I was, and my childhood coping mechanisms, I understand them now very well, where they came from and why they emerged as they did. But it's been a long time since they were ever helpful, and it took me a long time to realize that.
Yeah, well, they keep us in protection mode,
They do.
right? So if our boss isn't pleased with us, or if our boss is very animated, right, and we are feeling like we're not getting pleasing feedback, for a variety of different reasons. Could be that boss is really stressed, lots going on, there's an immediate kind of thing, who knows? Nobody to, sort of be the villain here. But we're going to respond to that as, holy smokes, he doesn't like me. I'm never going to get ahead. I'm not doing my job well.
I'm going to get fired.
I'm going to get fired. I need to start looking for another job. I don't like it here. Like all of the things that make us want to protect ourselves because somebody isn't pleased with us. Because as a child, parent wasn't pleased with us, the end of the world.
Yeah.
Right? As an adult, lots of people aren't going to be pleased with us.
Yeah, not end of world.
Not end of world.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's no answers to what to do by going back in time or
No.
going ahead in time.
No. Mm-mm.
Because one of the fundamental truths I've realized about BS stories is I can't remember a time where any of my BS stories when I weren't anything other than false. I haven't had one where I went, I knew that was what was going to happen, or that story was exactly right. It's never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Never happened. Right. So, and then I would do the thing like, okay, I'm going to think of as many crazy things as possible so none of these things happen. Because if none of these stories happen, just dumb.
Yeah. Waste of energy.
Waste of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Waste of energy. And, and how many times did I do that in the presence of people that mattered to me and they weren't getting all of me, or they weren't getting the best of me or the real me. And even beyond that, I wasn't even providing for myself the real me, more importantly, to start with. And what I could say to anybody who can relate to what I'm saying, as far as I've been there, it doesn't matter where you are in life. If you realize that and you start making changes, it's worth it, right? It just, I don't spend any time going back like, oh, I wish I would have figured this out 30 years ago. Well, sure, but I didn't, and so now, oh yeah, it's great. There's no relationship between, how long it takes and how great you feel for how long, once you start recognizing the agency you have and these practices and what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. No need to kind of inundate yourself with a whole nother problem just because, right? Like,
yeah, I remember one time I was wrapped up in that early on in our work together, and you said, well, JD, don't turn the solution into the problem, right? That doesn't have to be a problem either.
But that's what we've been taught to do.
Uh-huh.
Look for problems everywhere, right? So if we're going to look for problems everywhere, just like your point of like, okay, I learned about mindfulness. Now I see it everywhere. I was thinking when you said that earlier, like, yeah, you buy a new car and now everybody has the same car.
And the same
always.
color.
Yeah, same color, always, right? But it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. If we've been taught to look for problems and solve them because it feels good to solve problems, right?
Right.
We're going to see them everywhere.
Yeah, and it's behind the old adage, if you're a hammer, all you're ever going to see is a nail. It's
perspective.
Yeah. And it's chosen. It's chosen. And it's funny what you start seeing is from this space, you start seeing it like every show I watch. I find myself going, they have more choices than that. Slow down and think. Like I'm not yelling at the screen like some people do.
Oh, that's good.
But I'm like, you have different choices than that. Okay, that's coming from, oh man.
Right. Or just how I think what comes up for me is just like, yeah, wow, that idea or belief system is pretty entrenched.
It is.
Wow.
It is, because it's running the show in the story.
Yeah.
And then you probably realize that's probably running the show for a lot of people watching this right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like a few weeks ago we were talking about rom-coms, and hubby Dave and I still need to have that conversation, by the way.
Yeah.
But talk about that, right? The fundamental assumptions and understanding of choice and agency versus destiny and all this stuff in a rom-com. And then the people watching that, taking that in as maybe real, or as these are the choices, or these are the only options, or, there's a lot out there that can throw us off.
Yes.
As good as those movies are.
Right. Those would be hopefully those would just be the fun type of things.
Yes.
And maybe even noticing like who in those are actually an adult also. You could start to, but that might ruin the fun. So maybe you don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all the coping mechanisms that you're seeing flying all over the place in those movies,
kidding.
right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. And, and the thing and that's why the ones that actually engage in kind of what we're talking about, or what we were talking about last week too, the people trying to do differently out of an awareness that their previous modes of coping aren't working and they don't want to bring that in. That's why things like that are so rewarding. When I see them, like, okay, yes, you can do something different, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. And so who knows?
Who knows? We don't have the answers, do we?
Would anybody watch a rom-com that you and I would sit down and write from these principles?
Probably not. It would be so boring. They're just like, oh my gosh.
They're breathing again.
They're so quiet.
They're breathing again.
I want some kind of funny joke.
I don't want to hear about heart space anymore. That's funny. That's really funny. Well, wow. Okay, so I've had a couple of moments of just like kind of looking back on this. Heartfulness, first of all, that's what I'm going with from now on. And we're going to do something with that term. That's really good.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think we have a title for the episode just out of, the heart doesn't travel through time.
Awesome. I love it when that happens.
The heart is not Marty McFly. Something like that.
Something,
anyway.
yeah.
But yeah, but that's really interesting. And I know that if some of this sounds to people out there that a concept that's difficult to connect with, might be coming at it from a head space. And so the heart space is key in that. I think taking a look at your 6-week self-mastery course would help.
Yes.
Because we can talk about it all we want, but it's really kind of, trying to practice these things to connect with that where you might go, oh, okay. It's like we've talked about before. Trying to explain it is like trying to explain to somebody what it feels like to swim in the ocean rather than them swimming in the ocean, right? That's going to be their own descriptive thing. Or like try to describe to somebody what salty or sweet tastes like. When if they taste it, even if it's just a little bit, they know what it tastes like.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You're like, I'm going to be noodling on this.
Well, don't overthink it.
No, I'm not overthinking it. It's just like running through. It's like
just let
running
it
this
marinate.
course of like, wow, that's really true. The heart doesn't travel through time. Okay, so I'm done. I'm tapped out. So, but fortunately, we're out of time anyway.
Well, great. It works out perfectly.
JD's noodles cooked.
Yes.
Tawny dropped the mic. Boom. So anyway, well. We'd love to hear what you have to think about that or any of what we talked about on today's show or any other show. And remember, if you missed any of this episode or any of the other ones, you can either find it wherever you get your podcasts or you can check out our YouTube channel at Breaking Up With Our BS, and there's video versions of every episode there. You can also join us at our Facebook page of the same name and get info in between, communicate with us directly. And, of course, again, Tawny's 6-week self-mastery course is there for your perusal and use, and you can apply these in your own area of life. And more on the way.
As always.
And we'll have more about that in the weeks to come. And so we'll join you again next week, and please join us. And until then, I am JDK Winnigan.
And I'm Tawny Santabria.
And remember, there's always BS to break up with. See ya.
Stop. I can't take it anymore.
Oh, I do the live ones too. Yes, I know. I saw your act in the theater. You're really quite good. Quite a certain harmful habit.